So we're in the age of so-called representation and diversity, right? By that logic, you would think that there would be an influx of, fresh new ideas that weren't previously expanded upon, right? And, things like new classics would be born and all that. But unfortunately, there's a different story being told. That being the black version of such and such. Whenever I watch anime or read manga or read comic books, I see a lot of different stories being told that are based in Japanese culture. Even if it's not the center of what the story is about, it still has its presence within the works, which is to be expected because the creators and authors and artists are, Japanese. Now to see that and then to go to black creatives within the realm of comic books, it's a bit disappointing in my opinion. Not for everyone, of course, but just for some. Now I say what I say because I'd expect to see something similar to what I see in manga and anime, but with hella elements based around black culture mainly. But instead, what I'd end up seeing is the black version of whatever anime or manga I just saw. And nah, I don't mean the creators got inspired by these works or there's references to those works within their own works. Nah, I mean it's the same story, the same concepts, same characters damn near, except they're just black characters now. What we end up with is akin to like a Black and White fan fiction of some other popular IP. Not to mention that stuff usually gets regarded as top-notch work that needs to be made into an anime. So to hear that and then to hear some black people who complain about the lack of black characters and the lack of being represented in stories with characters who look like themselves and the need for, fresh new ideas, etc., is dead ass backward as hell, bro. If the black version of something is what you give the most praise to and the most attention to and the most support to, then clearly that's what you actually want. You say you want something new and original, but your actions tell an entirely different story. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of black creatives making their own original works. Most of the time when they post original stuff, it'll get like 5 comments, 15 likes in the span of like an hour. But as soon as they post some Black and White fan art of already established non-black characters, 400 likes, 150 comments, 500 plus shares, all within the span of like 10 minutes. Honestly, that tells me all I need to know about what a lot of the people within the representation crowd are actually looking for. In addition to the argument of originality, whenever black creatives post African-based content in a comic book, the reaction is kind of like, okay. But as soon as a white fantasy writer or a Japanese mangaka puts African-based content into their stories, or even has full-fledged black characters, and nah, I don't mean racially ambiguous motherfuckers who might be black, or, characters who just have a tan. As soon as they put that type of stuff in their works, these representation motherfuckers, they start to rejoice like, I don't know, like motherfucking, like reparations got approved of some shit. It's like because of the fact that a non-black creative put out this type of content, which doesn't bother me because there's nothing wrong with that. But when they do it, it's celebrated. But when black creatives do it, it's like, it kind of gets like the meh type of treatment and usually gets ignored into obscurity. It's like because of the fact that you don't expect non-black creatives to put out stuff like that, it only makes you cherish it that much more. But because you do expect black creatives to put out that type of stuff, it's not nearly as appreciated as it should be. And I'm talking about the stuff that's actually quality stuff. The type of stuff that's worth spending your bread on. I'm not talking about the bland, subpar shit with no type of real effort put into it. Then when it comes to supporting that type of content that does come from black creators, we act like, so many of us act like we can only support one at a time. Doesn't matter even if all or at least most of the new stuff that's out is hot. 1 minute is, oh, we can only go this hard for Black Panther, nothing else. Then it's, alright, we can only go this hard for Power, nothing else. Oh, we can only go this hard for the Boondocks. We can only go this hard for Lovecraft Country. We can only go this hard for Cannon Busters. When it comes to Eurocentric type shows and supporting them,
that ain't no problem. Huh? That ain't no problem.
Well, I can watch Game of Thrones, Black Mirror, American Horror Story, Umbrella Academy, the whole Harry Potter series, The Boys, The Mandalorian, The Witcher, every MCU movie from Phase 1 to 4 and beyond, the side stories of the MCU on Disney+.
That ain't no problem. Huh? That ain't no problem.
Well, motherfuckers be making memes and starting whole 500 plus comment section discussions for all that shit like it's nothing. I mean, is it really asking too much to have that same energy for black creative content? Again, I'm talking about the quality stuff, not the subpar whack shit. I'm just saying, yo, again, to whomsoever it applies to. If you representation matters cats are as serious about actually wanting fresh ideas and stories brought to you, you're gonna have to speak with your actions. But others may be like, oh, so what if we want to just see Black and Ops fan art of the shit that we already familiar with? Nigga, just let us rock. Like, look, that's fine. That's completely up to you. You can do that. But what annoys me about that, oh, we just want to see stuff that we familiar with, is that, people like that, they act like they can't support something unless it's already famous, or white people mess with it. Like, cause it seems like, cats like that, it seems like your barometer measuring if something is dope or not is to see how white people react to it. Let's examine how ridiculous and pretty stupid that whole familiarity argument sounds, right? Everything that you know that you like right now, right? You didn't know shit about it until someone else either recommended it to you or you stumbled across it. Did you know what the hell anime and manga was? Did you already know who Goku and Vegeta were before you knew what Dragon Ball Z was? I doubt it. If all you want to do is support Black and Ops fan art of established non-black characters, cool. But you don't in the same breath get to complain about not having anything truly new or original to call your own. Because originality is not what you're supporting. Whatever you give your time, your attention, and your money to, that tells people all they need to know about how true or how phony your outrage is. Hold up, but what about those of us who like Black and Ops fan art and original black content? You can definitely do both. So if that's the type of time that you on, that's cool. But I'm addressing the ones who don't do any of that. Like, if you complain about the lack of representation in characters for you to relate to in terms of race, but at the same time you refuse to do your part in making that a reality, either doing it yourself or supporting those who are trying to make that happen in the form of, contributing to Kickstarters or buying products, or even by methods that don't cost any money at all, like sharing links to their works and their pages and things like that. But if you ain't trying to do that, then nah, you don't get to complain about that. Then see, that crowd will still hit you with the, but why we gotta do it? It's hard. We shouldn't have to do that.
What?
Huh?
What?
What?
Huh?
Which is just another way of saying, look, I'm not willing to do the work necessary, which is well within my power, to make my complaints a thing of the past. Another thing that needs to stop is trying to be the black version of everything else. Bruh, one time I was in this black art group, and we had an argument about this whole representation matter shit, right? So tell me why son came out his face talking about, like, I will create my own characters, but it's difficult though. I wanted to uppercut that motherfucker so bad, bruh. That just tells me you're not very creative. If your reason for not wanting to make original content is because it's difficult, you don't get to cry about wanting characters who look like you. You can't be out here making weak ass excuses like that while at the same time saying, we the trendsetters, we the originators, we the most creative people on the planet. Everybody else just be out here, biting off our shit and copying our shit. Like, you can't be out here screaming black excellence 1 minute and shouting out all these black people who put in hella hours of hard work to make the accomplishments that they have, and then turn around the next minute and say, but creating our own stuff is hard. Why we gotta do it? Why can't somebody else do it? Black Monster Hunter, Black Game of Thrones, Black Lord of the Rings. You can make whatever content you feel like making. But when so many black creatives decide to take that route, it makes it look like the limits of black people's talents and abilities only go about as far as parody. Especially when it comes to horror. Black horror stories definitely need to stop with, overdosing on a comedy and shit. That's why it's only like a few good actual black horror movies, and the rest are just some slightly horror, but just mostly ghetto goofy shit. 30 minutes into the movie and these motherfuckers is having a spliff with the monster and shit. Now, if the story is meant to be more comedic than scary, then alright. But make sure you don't market it as a horror movie, knowing damn well it's gonna be straight goofy about 20 to 30 minutes in. It's basically just a scary movie, but no Wayans brothers. We really need to stop sitting up here acting like our writing capabilities and storytelling abilities are so limited, that we can only make things like comedic horror movies, Medea movies, tragic hood movies with sad endings where no one makes it out alive or has a happy ending, or romance or romantic thrillers where everyone's a dirty ass cheater and someone pulls out a gun at some point. You got so many black manga creators who try to do the same magical black ninja samurai with everyone in Japan. There's a whole plethora of material that you can pull ideas from and make an actual new and interesting story instead of trying to be Black Naruto or Black Dragon Ball Z or Black Bleach or Black Hunter x Hunter or Jujutsu Kaisen or some shit. Caribbean folklore, Black American folklore, African folklore, all that stuff has lore and mythology to find inspiration in. Instead of going a route of being a Japan-obsessed weeaboo nigga. The Tokoloshi, the Agagwe, the Abayafo, all kinds of stuff African mythology had to offer. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't have to be all bliggity black, blackity black, but blacker the black with it. Like how I got my stories where the majority of the characters are black people, and much of black culture influences much of the narrative. Like, I'm just saying, there are tons of other ideas from pretty much everywhere in the world that you can pull from to make an interesting story that'll stand out. Mix it up a bit. It's the same thing with cats who want to make, medieval fantasy type stories. It's like, dog, there are other countries outside of Europe that had some shit going on during the medieval era. Kentaro Miura, who made Berserk, you really think if he would have stuck with Japanese-based ideas that he would have been able to make that dope-ass series? Probably, but it wouldn't have been the same thing. He had to step outside and try something new if he really wanted to stand out from the usual shonen stuff. Taito Kubo also pulls ideas from different cultures to create diverse characters and abilities and designs. And that's with Bleach, Zombie Powder, Burn the Witch, and a bunch of the other, short stories and one-shots that he made. Sun still uses Japanese ideas, of course, but it's in addition to the other stuff that he uses. Even, like Hirohiko Araki, he also pulls ideas from various cultures to make some interesting shit. Now, like I said, you can make whatever kind of content you want. So for any salty motherfuckers that might try to say I'm trying to creation police or some shit, shut up. Point though, being derivative is not going to always work out the way you think it will. I've spoken with several creatives as well as people who are looking for new works to follow and support, and they'll say stuff like, how come so many of these cats be out here making stories about black people with katanas? All of these news stories that you won't being told by, with, and for black people to feel inspired by and see themselves in. It's very much achievable, but it ain't gonna come just because you wish for it, and it damn sure ain't gonna come from crying and begging. You gotta put in the work. But why we gotta do it? Cause you the one asking for it, motherfucker. There ain't white people out here trying to pull and claw at Hollywood's ankles to put more black people in shit. Believe it or not, the burden of responsibility doesn't fall on Marvel or DC or Disney or Shonen Jump or whoever else to give you representation. It all falls on you. Let's be honest. Let's say they never give you any kind of representation. What are the actual repercussions for it? We know that you're not going to stop watching anime. You're not going to start reading manga or reading comic books or looking out for the next movie in the MCU or watching the next Disney movie that comes out. You're way too attached to all of that shit to abstain from it indefinitely. You just ain't built like that, bruh. But it's funny how some black people will continue to beg these entities for representation as if it's everyone else's responsibility except for black people. Not to mention that 9 times out of 10 they're not going to give you representation the way that you want it. Either it's a caricature of stereotypes, a black sidekick to a white superhero, a character who gets hyped up for a bit and then reduced to comic relief, the sacrificial Negro, the black best friend, Coon, the black character who is the main character of the story, but they only remain a human for like 10 minutes of the story, or any other annoying ass trope. So what other option is there besides making the effort to be the change that you want to see in the media that you consume? Now, of course, I'm talking to those who it applies to. So I know there's plenty of black people who are looking for original and new content and are actively showing their support where it's deserved, as well as black people who are actually putting in the work to create this content. And the reason I say that they show their support where it's deserved is because not every black creative is trying to put out quality work. Let's just keep it a stack. Like, some of y'all be putting out some half-ass shit, and others y'all be just flat out stealing ideas from other creatives and shit. If you get folded over something like that, I ain't see shit. Now, the reason why I say that ownership is way more important than representation is because representation is nothing more than baseless symbolism that really doesn't account for much of anything when it all boils down to it. Now, sure, it may make some people feel better about something in a certain way, but that's all you really get with it. A feeling. Ownership, on the other hand, is a much more concrete and tangible concept because there's actual power in it. Think about this, right? How many black superheroes are created by black people and are black owned? And I mean in terms of the mainstream. If you think about it, not many. You can pretty much count them on one hand. Now, when it comes to black superheroes that are created by non-black people, you could spend a good minute listing as many as you can find. Blade, Spawn, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Black Panther. As much as we may like these characters, they ain't exactly FUBU. I mean, just look up who made these characters. White dudes. Now, I'm not saying it's bad that they don't have a black creator or that people can't create characters who are of a different race than their own. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, they're not ours. I know some people probably think I'm saying this to be a downer or some shit, but nah, it's just the truth. Not to mention that it's no secret that the nerd/geek community got its own fair share of racist and hating ass motherfuckers. Now, I mean, think about it. Racist white geeks are so fucking petty they will never let you live it down that the aforementioned characters were not created by black people. Now, those of y'all who actually head over heels for Obama being president, anytime that you dared to say that he was the first black president, if there were any white people around you when you said it, 9 times out of 10, they'd hit you with the, you do know he ain't just black, right? He also half white. If you think I'm capping, just ask anybody who's been through the shit. They'll tell you. See, we can like black characters who are made by non-black people. That's fine. The point I'm trying to make is, if those characters are ultimately not ours, we don't have the final say in how they get portrayed. Now, we can complain if we want to and hate it, you know, if they decide to do some bullshit. But really, all we have the power to do is stop giving them our attention and stop giving them our money. But if you hate what they do and you continue to support it, you basically just telling them that you like being tortured. We love Black Panther, right? But as annoying as this shit may be to hear, if Marvel Comics, and you know modern Marvel be on some bullshit, if they decide they want old boy to cross-dress, or they want to give him a boyfriend or some shit, or do some other dumb retcon shit that they've been recently doing to other long-established Marvel characters, they can do that because he's their character. Black culture is what the character and other characters like him within Marvel are based on and inspired from. And yes, there are black people who have worked on the title of Black Panther in terms of the writing and even the artwork. This is why I say that ownership is more important than representation. If you're not the one who creates the narrative, you don't get to call the shots. If you do create the narrative, the world that you just created is your sandbox. If the characters and stories that we create are on some FUBU shit, then that means it's up to us how the story plays out and what the characters go through. If we want the characters to be badasses, they're gonna be badasses. If we want their stories to have happy endings, they're gonna have happy endings. However we want the story to play out is how it's going to play out, because it's us who has the first and final say. But see, the thing is, you won't get that if you decide that the route you want to take is the one of begging and crying and hoping that the industry will throw you a bone with a little bit of gravy on it and give you some representation. Just because some creators within the manga and anime industry mess with us and the culture respectfully, that does not mean that the industry that they work within holds the same outlook. The creators and the industry itself are two completely different creatures. Another thing that black people need to stop doing:
stop giving away your shit.
Motherfuckers be sitting on a pile of diamonds, but because they feel the need to go through white people for acceptance and validation, they don't see any value in what they have and what they produce. They decide they're just gonna give it away like it ain't worth nothing. And then when they see other people utilizing and making bank off of their diamonds, now all of a sudden they want their diamonds back. You don't give a motherfucker the keys to your kingdom and then wonder why they don't seem to want to give the shit back now. Black people gotta stop playing the fucking fool, acting like they cool with being shitted on and stolen from, used and tossed out because they want to be liked and accepted by everyone. Fuck all that noise. Just because you're willing to build somebody else's empire for them, that does not mean that they're willing to do the same for you. Now look, here's the thing, right? There's a new era that's coming. So the days of making excuses and not putting in the work and the beggar mentality, it's not gonna fly no more. No one's trying to sit around feeling sorry for motherfuckers all day who have the ability to change the very thing that they're complaining about, but choose not to. They're just gonna look at you like,
I don't want to hear that shit.
I mean, you got black-owned comic book shops being opened. Comic book producers like Black Sands Entertainment got they shit popping right now. RDC World done put together their own convention with hella people coming through there. There's a black-owned animation studio in Japan by the name of Shitajo, and they worked on several animations for several well-known animes like One Piece and Attack on Titan being a few. Now those are just a few examples. My point is, you got black people out here putting in the work to make shit happen. They're actively trying to be the change that they want to see in the media they consume, in the world that they live in. Another thing, black people, we gotta stop with this whole negative version of the competitive mentality. By that, I mean the mentality that we gotta destroy and crush every other black man and woman who's trying to succeed because they're in the same field as us or some shit. Like, healthy competition will be all of us trying to bring the best out of each other through competition. If you want to sit around here asking for all this representation, then that means we have to put in the work. Why? Because we're the ones asking for the representation. And guess what? Ain't nobody trying to do that shit for you, bruh.